So, welcome to week 1 of the BBL. This week we are battling Matt O'Shea and the Montreal Milotics. I'm sorry if the mic doesn't sound too clear. I'm still in the process of getting my mic from my other apartment, so just bear with me on that one. But anyway, we're going to go through a quick team builder before we start the battle. So my opponent's team has a Hellcore in both Ninetales Alolan and Sandslash Alolan. It has a lot of mons that can potentially be either physically or especially offensive in Blaziken, Arceus, potentially Landorus, and the Exeggutor Alola that he actually sniped for me and I'm still a little bit salty about. And then he just has a lot of super offensive threats that are typically taken early in normal drafts, but since this is an Uber draft, he was actually able to catch a lot of them, like Landorus, Rotom Wash, and the Mega Altaria. So, looking at my team I decided to bring this week, I did bring a bulky Rocky Helmet Torkoal. It just has basic coverage to hit his team, it has rocks, and then it's able to take any 2 hits from a non-banded Blaziken, and it's able to take any 1 hit from Swords Dance, Arceus Bug. So it's kind of a backup check to those if stuff really goes wrong and he doesn't get rocks up. But really it's just more there to get rocks up and pivot in and out as needed. I did decide to replace White Smoke, or put on White Smoke instead of Drought last second because I really didn't want to set up the Sun when I had a lot of water type priority. I also decided to bring Solgaleo as a backup win condition for Landorus, who you'll see in a moment. But Solgaleo just has really good coverage for a lot of his team. It can set up speed so that it can outspeed Arceus and then any other threats that might be scarfed. And then it has Toxic for the Rotom switch in. Landorus is my primary win condition this week. With Calm Mind and Gravity, it really just wrecks his entire team apart from a potential bulky Arceus Bug. But otherwise, Earth Power and Sludge Wave just hit through really hard. And I think Gravity could catch him off guard if he decided to switch in something like Rotom or Bronzong. I could go for Gravity, and then Earth Power pretty comfortably OHKOs even without a Life Orb. And then if I'm able to get one Calm Mind up, I can take a a Hydro Pump from the Rotom Wash, even if it's offensive, and I can get my Berry back so I can be at high health to take on the rest of his team. So we're really looking to set up and win with Landorus at some point this game. Greninja is our primary breaker this time. I am bringing the Rockium Z because it would hit a specially oriented Arceus with perhaps Calm Mind or any Assault Vest mons on his team for a lot harder. I did bring a 128-128 split because at the time I didn't realize that you could actually edit its EVs. I thought that its EVs were locked in, and I'm hoping this doesn't hurt me in the battle because had I had the ability to change some EVs around, I probably would have given it some more physical attack so that I could do more damage to mons like the Arceus Bug and the Blaziken. But anyway, other than Rock Slide, the Rock Z, we did just have general coverage and U-turn as a pivoting option. And then we had a super bulky Mega Venusaur with just a really standard set. Sludge Bomb and Hidden Power Fire did cover most of his team. And then Leech Seed and Synthesis just help us stay alive as well as do more damage to him with chip damage from the Leech Seeds to force switches and to just give us more favorable positions. And then the final mon we brought was a Scarfed Azumarill. I thought this could be really good to catch mons like his Braviary if it wasn't Scarfed, and a bulky Landorus, a Blaziken on the switch-in, or even a Mega Altaria off guard as long as they hadn't set up speed in the past, because it could actually do a ton of damage with Play Rough, Liquidation, and Knockoff. And I did have the Aqua Jet there as a little bit of a backup. So going over the mons I decided not to bring, I didn't bring Fortress. It looked really good against Ninetales, but looking at my team versus his, I really didn't expect him to bring his Hellcore because there were just too many things that walled Ninetales because I do have a pseudo Sun team. So I thought Fortress would be good if he brought Ninetales, but since I decided I didn't really expect it, I kind of decided against bringing Fortress altogether. Rotom just didn't have enough coverage and speed for this matchup. So I decided to leave it on the bench for this time, although I do expect it to come along for the rest of the season. Heliolisk really had to be Scarfed to outspeed Arceus, and it had a lot of trouble with potential priority or Scarfers on his team, even if I did run it Scarfed. So I just decided to leave it out this game, especially since I wasn't bringing the Sun. And then the last 3 I actually dropped after week 1, and I just decided that all 3 of them weren't good for this matchup. Tropius, Gothorita, and Drampa all just didn't have what it took to stay on the Remoraiders team. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into the battle. Alright, so here we are after the battle. Looking at his team, I actually was pretty surprised that he decided not to bring Altaria, and not to bring Bronzong, and not to bring his Blaziken, because all three of them had pretty strong matchups against my team and could have done a lot of either damage or utility work against it. But I'm kind of happy he didn't. Drapion surprised me a bit. I thought a bulky Drapion could have made sense, but I didn't really know what it would want to do this game, because it really kind of lacked a lot of coverage. I could see an Assault Vest with bringing Earthquake, Dual Stab, and maybe Pursuit or some other move that could give coverage to some other mon on my team. I wasn't really sure, to be honest. I thought his Arceus bug was probably Swords Dance. Braviary would make a lot of sense Scarf, as well as Bulky Rotom. His only potential Z move user on this team is his Exeggutor, so we kind of have to keep an eye on that and see if it wants to launch any big Draco Z's or anything like that. And then he also had the Landorus, which could really be anything. It could have been Dual Dance, it could have been Scarf, Band, or just Bulky. So looking at his team, I did want to go ahead and lead Mega Venusaur so that I could go ahead and get my Mega Evolution up and avoid taking any super effective damage later. So I'll go ahead and play the video. And really, my idea was to keep Landorus in the back and use it as my big win condition toward the end of the game if I was able to wear him down enough with mons like Venusaur, Ash Greninja, and Solgaleo. So I do lead Venusaur here, and I calced it and noticed I could live even a Z Draco, but looking at his ability, he didn't show Frisk, which means he's Harvest, so I just assumed at this point he wasn't a Z move and he would be something like Citrus. So I did just go for the safe Sludge Bomb. It does 2-hit KO the Exeggutor, but he decides to bring in his Drapion here. And this surprised me at first, but the Black Sludge should have been a dead giveaway that it was a subset that probably was able to set up as well. So I did decide to go ahead and switch out here. Torkoal is not even 2-hit KO by an Earthquake from a non-setup Drapion, but as you can see, it does have Swords Dance. So from this point, I'm not 1-hit KO'd, but I'm definitely 2-hit KO'd by Earthquake. If he hadn't had Earthquake, he probably still couldn't have 2-hit KO'd me. It depended on if he was adamant or not. But as you can see, that's easily going to 2-shot my Torkoal. So really the only thing poor little Girdle the Turtle did this match was knock out a Drapion substitute. But still, it did help a lot in that it was the best death fodder I had on my team. I didn't want to risk switching in Landorus on the Earthquake since it was my win condition, and it was actually good to do so because he did show the Crunch, which does reveal his whole moveset, and he actually doesn't have Poison Jab, which means if I had brought a setup Azumarill, I actually would have had a chance to belly drum up on his Drapion. I did go into Landorus here, and not wanting to risk anything, I did just go for the Earth Power, even though the Rotom switch was obvious. A lot of the things I did early in this match were extremely obvious plays that I probably shouldn't have made, but I had to get a feel for how Matt played. I wasn't really sure. I did watch a couple of his videos, but I did just bring in the Venusaur on the Rotom, gave him a free Volt Switch, and here's Drapion again, who can clearly take any of my moves and not get its substitute broken. So I did have to go ahead and switch here. I decided my next least useful member was the Azumarill, so I wasn't too worried about going ahead and switching it in, using Play Rough to hopefully not miss and knock out the substitute. And then that does reveal the Scarf to him, but I did surprise him here by being Scarfed, I believe, because he did go for the Sword Stance. So I do go for another Play Rough because I did notice it was a roll to KO, and unluckily he does survive and does about half to me with Earthquake. So I was sad to see that. He gets Black Sludge up, and I do just go for a Play Rough here because it really does damage to everything on his team, and it would knock out the Drapion if he decided to leave it in. But he doesn't. He decides to go on his Landorus, and him taking about 40% here does show me that this isn't a very bulky Landorus. So it's either Scarfed or maybe some kind of setup, and we do see Rock Polish. So he did go ahead, set up a Rock Polish, but it really doesn't scare a full health Mega Venusaur that badly. As you see, he does go for Earthquake, and it does under half. It does about 40%. So with a Leech Seed, I am able to get enough of my health back to comfortably live any other hit. I was a little nervous that it might be some kind of Power Herb Fly set, but I was at this point just hoping I could live it. But he does decide to bring in this Drapion here. Luckily, we did do enough damage to it earlier that it's not able to set up another substitute because we are running out of sacks to give to this Drapion. Here, interestingly, he decides to go for a sword stance, which I thought was kind of odd because I thought he would just want to get some damage off on Venusaur with the crunch, which does come into play later, you'll see. But instead he sword stances, I Sludge Bomb and just flat knock him out. Maybe he was predicting a switch or something, I'm not really sure, I'll have to watch his video. But he does decide to bring back in the Landorus and go ahead and set up a sword stance. So I decided to just set up another Leech Seed because I knew that he would probably want to either sword stance, rock polish, or just try to earthquake, and I knew that I would be able to effectively stall him out with Leech Seeds unless he started sword stancing. So here I decided to go ahead and go into Azumarill. This play was kind of, if he sets up a rock polish, trying to go ahead and sweep, I do have the Aqua Jet, but if he does knock me out, Azumarill's not really that useful at this point. So since he didn't get a speed boost, I thought this was a good opportunity to get Greninja in and fake the Ice Beam so that I could go ahead and actually start building some initiative in this battle and getting myself back into the driver's seat because I've really been playing passively through a lot of this game. So I do pass into my Lionel Richie at this point, my Solgaleo, absolute monster. I'm so happy I drafted this round 1. I do get a Flame Charge up in case his Arceus decided to start setting up or anything. I did want to guarantee that I outsped it, and he does bring in his Rotom predictably. I decided to take this opportunity to get a Toxic because I actually have no offensive grass coverage on my team. All I would have is Leech Seed, which, you know, it doesn't do any damage other than the 12%. So I decided to go ahead and get a Toxic because that's really the only way I have to wear down this Rotom. And he does burn me. This Solgaleo is a lot less useful when it's burned, but I decided it was still good enough to try and get some chip damage and to wall the Arceus depending on its set later. So I did go back into my Venusaur. Luckily, he doesn't have the Drapion to go into, but he does have the powerful Braviary, which I did expect to see earlier in the game. Fearing the obvious Brave Bird, I do decide to just go back into my Solgaleo, take the Brave Bird, and looking at the damage, I noticed that it wasn't banded. It didn't show Life Orb, so at this point I was just assuming Scarf, because a lot of Braviaries typically are Scarf in this format. So here he decides to switch out into the Rotom, or into the Landorus. He does try to get the Intimidate, but luckily Solgaleo has an amazing ability that doesn't allow it to get intimidated, and I just go for the powerful Sunsteel Strike. 100 base power stab. Does damage to almost everything except for Rotom. Burned, it does about 5% to Rotom because it's quad resisted, so it's actually pretty garbage move against Rotom. But anyway, here he decides to go in his Exeggutor, and I didn't really know what he wanted to do, so I thought I would just try to get some more damage on this by giving a Toxic to it. But then he doubles out into Braviary. That's another thing I'll have to watch his video for. I'm not really sure what he was trying to accomplish with that. But I do get a Toxic on Braviary, which at this point looks like it's good, but later on it actually proves to cause a lot of issues toward the last few turns of the game. So he does U-turn here and reveal the Scarf, as I decide to go ahead and set up a Flame Charge in case he was Scarf so that I could outspeed everything on his team once again, because I really wasn't doing much damage regardless. And I cannot touch this Rotom at all. If from the team builder at the beginning of the video, you saw that I had Earthquake that this Rotom's immune to, Flame Charge that's weak and he resists, and then Sunsteel Strike that he quad resists, and I'm burned to top it off. So you'll see this does absolutely pathetic damage. I could have run like Tackle and it would have probably done more than that. But he goes ahead and Volt Switches out. I would have personally stayed in and Hydro Pump because Solgaleo cannot touch Rotom at all. But this is fine with me because I get more chip damage on this Braviary that'll help me wear it down and knock it out with one of my mons later, because I know Landorus can live one hit, and from the health I'll leave it at after the Sunsteel Strike, I do know that a Sludge Wave should be able to finish it off. So he decides to pivot again, back into his Rotom, which was a very good play in my opinion, because Rotom takes any hit from the Solgaleo. And at this point, I realized that this health really doesn't help me live any hits, and once I switch out I do lose my speed. So I decided to go ahead and let Solgaleo drop here. That does leave me with only 3 Mons after this, but I feel like those 3 Mons can pretty effectively clean up the rest of the game, with Venusaur being an effective wall, and then with Landorus and Greninja to do a lot of damage and hopefully clean up the rest of his team. So he does Volt Switch, but knock me out, so I do get the initiative, and he decides to go into his Exeggutor. So I think this is a pretty good chance to go ahead and bring back in Venusaur, go for the Sludge Bomb and get some nice super effective damage on this Venusaur. We do get on this Exeggutor, we do get some nice first turn poison action going on, and we do see the Citrus Berry Harvest, so he's confirmed to not have a Z move on this team. So he does get his harvest here. It doesn't really matter because another Sludge Bomb will still knock it out. But there's no way I can scissors this up and be at much more health than I am now. I want to be as healthy as possible when I go against the Arceus. But for now, this is the best I can do because I couldn't really heal up against the Exeggutor. So this is the point in the match. I will pause here that I looked at the rest of my team, looked at the rest of his team. He had a semi-low Braviary. He had an Arceus Bug that hadn't shown any moves, and he had a Rotom Wash. And I noticed that Landorus had the most trouble breaking through the Arceus Bug. And since it hadn't taken any damage and I had never gotten Stealth Rocks up, it probably couldn't effectively sweep him. So I decided to go ahead, bring in Landorus, and sack it, hoping to have Venusaur and Greninja as my late game cleaners. And honestly, just crossing my fingers that that would be enough at this point. So I do bring in Landorus with the intent that it will knock me out with 2 Brave Birds, and then I'll be able to bring Greninja in and revenge it. But then I noticed the Toxic, and it does knock it down below 20%, which means that after a Brave Bird and another hit of Toxic, Greninja cannot revenge this Braviary with Water Shuriken, which was really unfortunate because that means I'm never able to get my Ash form off and get the power boost I need to potentially OHKO the Arceus depending on his spread. So here it was a 50-50 with the 2 Pokemon we each had left. I decided to go into Venusaur, he went into Arceus, so it was best case scenario for me given the circumstances. I really expected a Swords Dance Arceus here, and he shows Calm Mind, which terrified me at the time, but showed me that my only chance of winning was to get a Z-Rock off and kill it, but I had to work its health down. So I decided to go for a Sludge Bomb this turn in case it was just a Swords Dance variant, because it would set up a Swords Dance, I would hit it with a Sludge Bomb, and then after that I could use Leech Seed and then just slowly wear it down between the Poison and Leech Seed, doing about 25% per turn. And then Greninja would probably be able to come in and go ahead and revenge it. So here he just keeps going for Calm Minds, so Venusaur is able to do absolutely nothing. I do go ahead and Synthesis. I thought he would go for an attack here, but I wanted to go ahead and get most of my health back so that I could guarantee I take any hit. And then he decides to recover here, which was a good play. If I had switched in Greninja there, I essentially lost. But I set up the Leech Seed, so we're going to start taking 25% per turn. It's looking like Z-Rock Slide does somewhere between 60 and 70%, depending on the amount of bulk he has. So all we have to do is make sure that he's that low. He goes for a Psychic here, and it leaves me at 5 health, which is ridiculous. That was probably a roll to knock me out. But we do get the Leech Seed recovery. Remember this health later. We only had 30 health at this point, which is very important because we still don't know who outspeeds between Rotom and Venusaur. I do bring in my Greninja because his plays here were Psychic, Recover, and I knew that neither of those punished the Greninja switch in. So we see the Leech Seed, we see the Poison, and we see that he's somewhere around 65%, so it's time to go ahead, unleash the Z move, hit him with this huge Z-Rock that I hoped he didn't expect. Usually that's the best kind of Z moves in my opinion. If we do knock him out, we do get Ash form, we'll get a Dark Pulse off on the Rotom. We can potentially start aiming for flinches and we can probably 2-shot it, but he lives on 1. Hits us with an Earth Power, knocks us out, he goes down to Poison, and that leaves us with this huge 1v1. We have my 30 health Mega Venusaur, his very high health Rotom, and at this point it was down to speed, how much speed we decided to invest, and it was down to attack investment. My calcs told me that his Hydro Pump was doing 28 to 33. Afterwards he confirmed that my calcs were accurate. He had about 12 investment in special attack, so it was about a 50-50 roll to show who won this game, and I had almost no speed in this Venusaur. But you're going to see that I get first, I get the Synthesis off, and this guarantees us the game. It doesn't matter if he has Hidden Power Psychic, Hidden Power Flying, but then he hits us with his Hydro Pump, and it does 33 damage. So had he had the speed investment, then he would have won the game because that Hydro Pump would have been enough to knock us out. So I just go for another Synthesis here just to play it safe, seeing what else he had. He had messaged me at this point saying, you know, I'll just go ahead and forfeit if this is gonna get stally. And I said, no, I'll just go ahead and knock him out. I was just playing safe. But then you'll see that this Rotom actually outspeeds on this turn with Pain Split. And it just blew my mind. That was a speed tie. We both invested just enough speed. So had he won the speed tie, the turn I went for synthesis, he would have won. So this game came down to a ton of rolls. It came down to the Greninja rock slide kill, and then it came down to the speed tie into the potential roll with hydro pump. So this was a crazy, crazy week 1 BBL game. But in the end, Venusaur decides to pull us out a narrow 1-0 win, netting 4 kills, 1 passive due to toxic, and Solgaleo getting 2 kills, and everybody else just pretty much being death fodder. But anyway, that's the end of the battle. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one.